everybody. This is Coach Parker with CoachParker.org. How you guys doing today? Welcome back to my Coaching Youth Football Tips and Talk podcast. We've got a new subject today, and maybe turn this into a series of multiple podcasts because it is a pretty, sometimes a difficult subject. It's parent communication. Since I've kind of semi-retired this past season, been thinking a lot about the parent issues that I've had over the years, and I've got about 30 to 40 issues that we can chat about and how I handled them and what I went through during those issues, and maybe that'll help some of you guys. So let's jump in right into it. Right after, make sure you subscribe to the podcast either on YouTube or on your podcasting service there. You can also head over to CoachParker.org and subscribe to my blog over there. So hey, let's get into our first area of the parent communication issues podcast here. One of them is parents yelling or coaching from the sidelines at practice and games. And what that does. I got a few examples here of when I had a parent coaching or yelling from the stands, chain gang, near the sidelines, or even coaching from home. So let's go over there. It's got about 5 or 6 of these. So I guess my first year coaching over in Plano, Texas, we were in a playoff game against the number 2 seed and we're beating them. And I think it was in the second half. His son was the middle linebacker and his dad was kind of a hothead, which most of these guys from the sideline are the screaming and yelling are sometimes, but we had called the blitz for an outside linebacker. This kid was playing middle linebacker, and we had an outside linebacker blitz on when this kid's dad, middle linebacker's dad, yells for his sons to blitz, and which caused a huge gap there. And they ran right by him as he blitzed, and they scored a touchdown, which gave them the lead in this playoff game. And I really do blame this dad for that. I didn't get into it with him at the game, other than just saying something that, we actually had another blitz going on. But I do highlight this fact that parents should not be coaching their son or player from the sidelines, because many times they don't know exactly what we've called or trying to do. I know sometimes they think they're trying to help, but if they're telling their son specific or daughter, specific responsibilities they should be doing, that probably is not going to be beneficial long term for the team. It may cost you a playoff game like it did me. I definitely make sure I highlight that parents are not to be coaching anywhere their son or player from sidelines or on the field when we're in a game situation or even at practice. And sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't. But that's the first example. We have another dad that does this quite a bit. I run kind of an overloaded trip scenario and just have an ace quarterback with 3 receivers and 2 tight ends. And I don't know how many times one of the dads will yell from the sideline or stands for whoever his son is the last receiver, that guy should be on the line of scrimmage. And what that winds up doing is covers our tight end on the trip side, where he, if he goes out for a route, I don't know how many passes I've had called back because dads are yelling at their son to get on the line when that's not what we're doing in that formation. So please, dads and moms, stop telling your son where to align. We'll handle that. I know you're trying to help, but sometimes you don't really know the formation that's going on. I do talk to those parents, and have talked to that one dad as soon as it happened and after it happened, because we got a penalty. He was quite embarrassed because I just let him know during the game professionally that he can't be yelling across the field. And we do talk about that at practice or other parent meetings if it becomes a major issue. We have a lot of this going on, and I know it's hard for some dads. We want them to coach some stuff to their son, but we play a very specific way that we handle our defensive ends and contain men and what we do. I get so many dads telling their sons too many different things on how to play DN or whatever, and we usually have to like cut that as soon as we find out that that's going on. What we've tried to do in the future here is let the dads know what defense we're running and kind of what the responsibilities are to certain these positions, especially sometimes how we play corner, DNs, and our middle linebackers. So their dads know. I know another coach has actually had a parent practice for his team where he goes through on a Saturday, kind of letting, the dads that are kind of control freaks on how their offense works and how their defense works, and said that that's helped them out quite a bit. So kind of agree with that in a way, and I've done that, and I've done some videos before, and I try to point some of these parents to some of my videos that I've got out on YouTube so they'll understand some of these things. But we try to nip that in the bud pretty much when we've got a coach at home telling a player they should be doing certain things, and that just defeats the purpose of what we're trying to coach on the field. And when you've got a dad telling their son or daughter, or even mom, that they need to do it this way and we're trying to go this way, it doesn't really help the team in the long run. The other thing that we've run into is we're a ball control offense many times, and I don't know how many times parents from the sidelines are screaming for our offense to hurry up when we're actually trying to take as much time off the clock as we can. We're killing the clock and we're usually ahead. So we have to remind the parents, hey, please stop yelling at your child from the sideline, because that's an issue. And so, we try to remind parents every practice through emails when this does happen that, hey, please don't be coaching from the sideline, stands, etc. We had a thing, I think it was 2 or 3 seasons ago, and this is where you got to be careful with who you pick for chain gang. We've had some dads that have basically subbed their injured son back into the games without pulling the original, the sub player out. So the starter got hurt. The starter's now okay. His dad sends him back in, but doesn't pull the sub player out, and then we get a penalty for that. You got to remind the chain gang guys that, hey, you're on the chain gang, you're not coaching. And I know some of those guys, when they get there, they want to be involved, but need to remind those guys. And a couple of those guys have been embarrassed because when they get penalties and everybody's looking at them on the sideline, they kind of learn to stop. And we just have to remind those guys that you're on the chain gang, you're there to volunteer. You're really not to talk to the referees or the coaches and so forth. So, and then the other thing from the sidelines that happens, and I know a lot of this is in your league guidelines, is, parents don't yell at the referees. Our referees are great. We've got a great crew that's been with us forever in our league. I really like them because I've been in leagues where, they were volunteer refs. We've actually got high school refs doing our games. And some parents decide that, and even coaches sometimes go off on these guys. One, it's going to cost us a penalty. 2, they get upset and start throwing flags on the team that's yelling at them. So we try to remind parents, especially in big games, and if they do start to yell, I'll go over and tell everybody that, hey, you can't be yelling at the referees. That's going to cause us a problem as the game goes on. So that's a big thing for us to make sure that doesn't happen. Another issue that I've had is parents yelling from the sideline at us coaches of who we should play and put in. A lot of times parents will be yelling for their son to get subbed in, or this player sucks or whatever, and we'll have to talk to that parent individually the next day at practice or after the game. We try not to do anything after the game, really, because everybody's kind of hopped up, especially if you lost. Couple of days after the game, give us a 24, 48 hour period. Everybody can kind of chill down and go through that. A lot of times in game, we have to say something to folks. Remember to be professional. Just kind of explain. I try to be professional and not yell back at anybody, and just try to explain the situation or why you can't do that, how that's going to affect the team overall. Sometimes they're just jerks and run away and don't want to listen to you, and that's fine. But you just need to make sure that whatever you're saying is professional and on the up and up, and that if they do say anything to the league of what you said to them is definitely professional, and that you weren't yelling back at them. But really, you can't have parents coaching from the sideline or yelling from the sidelines at practice or in games. We had a parent a couple of seasons ago start yelling at their son during practice, started yelling at me during a practice about a certain drill or what they didn't like this fundamental, and we were coaching it wrong, and I'm not sure if they knew exactly what we were doing because they were far enough away that they couldn't hear it. I know I yelled back because I was frustrated because they kept yelling and basically disrupting practice. That didn't go over well, and it's probably my fault that I escalated because then they wanted to talk and they were upset. And so I probably should have handled that better with going over and speaking to the parent individually and not yelling back over, hey, we'll talk to you after practice. We're doing this. He felt like I called him out. So I think I should have handled that better by just having one of the other coaches take the drill over and go over and talk to him, figure out what was going on. That would have been a much better way to handle it instead of kind of yelling across the field at him like he was yelling at me. So that's, I'm learning too and getting through it. And we wound up having a great relationship after that. Loved his son as a player, and it worked out. But, at the first of the season, that little stress kind of stressed us both out a little bit. But it all worked out in the end. So we've had another experience with the father yelling at practice and then physically pushing and hitting his son in the helmet and pushing his son down. And at the time, this was a father that was kind of a separated father from from family. The mother was the team mom, and we stopped practice. I went over and spoke to her. She was upset that the father was there. I guess there was a restraining order on that father, so I went over there and asked him to leave. He was pretty upset and abusive to me. I asked him to move away from the kids while he was talking, which he did. He kind of understood that. And then the mother had actually called 911, and the police showed up and asked him to leave, and they did their whole thing, and we moved down the field and continued our practice. That situation could have easily escalated out of hand, but he touched his son physically and was pushing him on the helmet. I'd ask him to stop, which he did. He had another friend there. We kind of talked about it. Then I talked to the mom. I think he knew what was about to happen, and then the league basically banned him then from practices, and I never saw him again, and we never had another issue. So you just got to make sure you stay calm in these situations and talk professionally and let them know why this can't happen, because a lot of times in these physical altercation issues, they forget who's around. And they because they're so mad or upset, they actually forget there's other people watching until you remind them that there's 28-year-olds looking at him thinking, why is he pushing this kid? He kind of understood that, and we were able to get that situation under control. Another issue we've had is a chain gang volunteer basically go ballistic on the sidelines because we were losing, and he did not feel like, the staff was coaching well enough for him or his son or the entire team, and basically started yelling at us on the sidelines. We promptly asked him to leave and got another volunteer, and that person just never got on the chain gang again. And so that's one way to handle it. I've had a couple of other guys just continue to make comments as they're on the chain gang. Some people I like enough to let that go, and they can say stuff because sometimes they say stuff that's interesting and maybe I'll use it. So you have to kind of decipher how far is this person gone. I think when they start making derogatory comments just overall and everybody can hear it, and it's becoming an issue, not just one comment but many comments, and it's causing disruption on the staff. I think at that point you have to call a timeout and ask for a substitution on the chain gang and ask that parent to leave the field. The other thing that occurs sometimes, and it's because everybody gets really involved, and we hear this a lot from assistant coaches on the other side of the field and from parents about you can't really in today's environment yell out, hey, let's kill this player and use those words, or let's hurt them and get them and let's target those people. I mean, those words said out loud across the field where everybody in the stands can hear those, that's just considered politically incorrect today. I mean, a lot of people knows you don't want to kill a player, but those words, that can't happen, and that's considered really unsportsmanlike behavior now. And so we have to talk to certain parents that are still telling their kids to, hey, go for their knees, let's hurt them or whatever. We don't want to hurt anybody. We want to, make sure people know that we're tackling and they're getting hit. But we don't want to hurt anybody or kill anybody or target anybody in a way that's going to hurt anybody, and we don't want that to come across. So we talk to those parents that have that type of attitude that, in today's environment, the league and our coaching staff just isn't going to put up with that, and we just can't say that, and you do that in a professional manner. I know our leagues have several issues with parents getting talked to about that, and it is an old school versus new school kind of issue, and so that has to be dealt with. I think with all these parent yelling, coaching yelling issues and practice and games, it's a fine line of what you can do. I mean, it's always been best for me that I make sure that when I do the parent meetings that I have everything outlined, what I don't want to happen, and I feel like when you do kind of a halfway parent meeting and don't really just lay everything out, and sometimes there's like, really, this is overkill. You just got to say it all, and it's there, and everybody kind of knows where everybody stands, because when you don't really just say it outright, I think there's just room for error. So I'm kind of make sure that all of this kind of stuff, and when I have my parent meeting, I actually go through some of these examples like I'm doing now, so everybody can understand why I'm asking these things, because I think that's always better when you tell folks why they can't do a certain behavior and let them know, this is why and these are the consequences, then it seems like it's taken easier. Of course, you're always going to have that one parent that is just not going to understand what's going on, and maybe that parent, their child isn't on your team the next year, and that certainly can happen. I know many parents that are known in our league that nobody wants to recruit or draft their child because they don't want to deal with a certain parent. So that reputation goes in the league. So if you're one of those parents listening to this podcast, just know that you're probably known that you're difficult, and you may be hurting your son getting on a really good team because nobody wants to deal with the helicopter parent all over their child and the coaches about playtime and what's not going right or how they should be doing certain things. But again, addressing these parent yelling, coaching, sideline issues, just let everybody know up front at the beginning of the season it's not tolerated. It's just not going to occur. These are why, and these are your rules, and if it does start to happen, don't let it fester. Address it immediately in a professional manner. Send out reminders, email communications. And then also, after practice or a couple of days after the games, if it's an issue, make sure you talk to the parent and explain why. If it is in game and you've got to deal with it all, immediately, then deal with it immediately in a very calm and professional way so it doesn't blow up in front of the whole stance. So that's all I've got on parent yelling, coaching from the sidelines in this part of the podcast. Stay tuned for parts 2 and 3 of the parent communication issues over the next 3 weeks. Also, remember to visit CoachParker.org for more free youth football coaching tips. And as always, play for fun, and winning is funner. This is Coach Parker. See you guys next time.